Hello and welcome back to the
Thanks, dude.
MarkZ.
Wow. Specifically me.
Presented by Honda.
I'm back. Who cares about the fans? This is the real story.
Oh shit, he's got an attitude now.
He's got an ego. What happened on your vacation?
One person tweeted at me. They're like, "I missed you." And that was it. That's all you. That's all you need to make. That was you on your burner.
Yeah.
Kobe, I must say you're looking very fancy today.
Yeah.
You're making us look bad.
I know.
The new outfit is going to be decided by this or that from now on, since we moved and this or that is shot before. And our stylist set me up with a shirt that's old before quarantine. It's too tight.
Small.
Starchy.
In addition to having
too jacked.
In addition to having a full suit. So casual talk, get
That's the thing.
here,
I feel like this or that is always like more suited
formal.
up. Yeah.
I think they should just ramp it up so that he's like got like a top hat and maybe like a pocket
Some
watch.
monocle.
And stuff.
I'm down for a monocle. I'm super down for.
You have a
monocle.
Would you be able to see out of your other eye, though?
No, I wouldn't. But you're supposed to like squint to be able to hold the thing in there anyway.
Is that really how it is?
I don't know much about monocles.
They must have had monstrous brow muscles back in the day for holding that monocle in during the entire play.
You need a jacked eyebrow to hold
Dude's
it.
eyebrow is just.
Just pumped. All right.
What are we talking about?
Akshan is out. He got released. Seems pretty crazy. I mean, he did just get hot.
Seems crazy in what way? Because he's got a crazy low win rate.
In the way that all I see him do is E forward and then die.
Have you seen him? Swing into a splat onto a wall. I've seen that a few times.
I've seen him swing into a tower. I've seen some good ones.
I've watched a lot of the Reddit clips too, and those are the ones that are trying to make him look broken. He's like gets a pentakill. He's got like 18 kills before the start of the clip, and he's like.
So one cool thing I did see is someone tried to hide behind a tower, but it was a low health tower. So and he had his ult channeling, because you can block with anything.
Yeah.
But it does missing health damage, and so it missing health damaged the tower and killed the tower, and then still shot the person.
Wow, I didn't even know it worked on tower.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I haven't actually seen that. I've seen
you can't target tower, right?
No, the person hid behind it, so he was like free money.
That's pretty funny. It is kind of cool. I only played one game on it myself, and I was just trying to figure out the champion, and like, oh my god, I was struggling. There's a lot going on. It did get hotfix buffed, but it came out at like 29% win rate, 30% win rate, one of the lowest releases of all time.
Yeah.
And I do think it's largely because it's like people aren't using the E right. The W isn't a combat spell. So like people are basically fighting with autos in their queue, and like that's it. In most of the time when I see the game, like the E is working for the other team more than it's working for the
I saw Tyler one get a penta. Okay. Champ is fine.
I think that's the video I watched. Yeah. 18 kills at the start of the clip. Yeah. I feel like this is the thing that people probably struggle with is like so much of the power budget is like eaten up by the utility of the revive and like
the stealth
and all the different components of the kit that like you have to actually play it really well. So
there's a learning.
The win rate, it's going to be one of those champions where the win rate is naturally low. It's probably undertuned as well. But I understand why they did that to be safe, because if you put out this thing that's also numerically strong and then it has all that utility, it's just going to feel miserable to play again.
I mean, it all depends on the skill cap. Freak always likes to reference release Yasuo, which was broken, which had to get nerfs, and it came out at almost this win rate. It was between high 20s and low 30s. So.
Yeah, and generally, like from what I have heard from designers and seen of data, it's like they want it to come out reasonably strong because it takes time for people to learn it, and if it comes out weak and you have to learn it, then it's like so trash.
They actually walked back on the philosophy of like releasing strong. They had another dev talk where they talked about it a little bit.
Okay.
And so they walked back a little bit on it.
They started making everything an e-boy, and then suddenly it's like, I'll play it no matter what. Oh, sorry, I had to slip it in.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys saw Next Level, there was kind of like a conversation that related to this, which was pretty interesting. So Perks was on, Medios and him were kind of talking about, all right, new champs and philosophies around it. And Medios was basically saying something to the effect of, new champions come out, I don't actually bother to learn it. I just kind of like wait and see if someone's going to beat me with it before I spend the time. And then if they beat me with it, I kind of like figure out a counter, right? And Perks immediately is like, that's the boomer mindset.
That's what I was going to say as soon as I heard you recount.
And Perk said like he used to do that, but he has since kind of realized that like jumping on it early can really give you an advantage of like more than just the initial boost. Because Meteos was like, well, you can maybe get a game or two, but that's it. And Perks is saying, hey, it has long-term benefits too, because if you adopt it early, if you put in the time, you're going to be the best at this champion.
And what I would say too, on top of that, is that the best way to learn the counter for it, even if your goal is to learn the counter, is to play the champion. That you always know so much more about it by playing it. That's why, things like World of Warcraft, you want to play every single class, right? If you're going to do arenas, it really does help both ways. So yeah, it's a boomer mindset. It also just feels kind of like the lazy, like if you're really trying to cut corners here, most efficient pathway, you have to wait until it actually beats you and then just find something to stun it.
I feel like from a pro mindset, you shouldn't do that. But from a solo queue mindset, I can kind of get that, where you're like, well, if it's not strong right now, I'm just not going to worry about it because I'm just grinding for my own elo. And I can see a little bit more that mindset if that's the stance Meteos is taking, where he's like, well, if it's not strong and it can't beat me, like I don't really want to learn it and put games into it now. I'll wait till it's strong. For Perks and pro players, you should pick it up right now and spam a bunch of games on it, because eventually it's probably going to be decent. And that's what happened with a lot of champions. And I think Bjergsen talked a lot about this with like Zoe on release, just spam the hell out of it. There's a lot of champions that he's been good about just instantly picking up, because at some point it might be strong, even sometimes right on release, and then like you're the one who can play and everyone else is playing catch up when the buffs come in, and you can exploit a lot of people that way.
Yeah, I mean, there are just so many advantages to jumping on whatever's new in the game that it's really hard to craft an argument
on the other
against
side.
it.
Yeah, I mean, Perks was even referencing Viego and Gwen, right? He said like when they first came out, he put in a lot of time, and like he felt like right from the get-go, these are OP. So he was talking about how he was telling Fudge like, hey, you got to play this, and so Fudge started playing Gwen. I think it was the other. I think the other kind of disagreed.
That worked out well.
Was if it was strong or not, but I think it was one of the two. Like they were kind of on immediately. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I'm fully in your boat, Kobe. Of like when I want to learn how to beat something, I play it because I always find you realize what is the most annoying thing to have done to you. And then when you're playing against it, you can do that to them.
Or you realize like, hey, this is actually hard to pull off. And like, if I just do this next time, they can't do that. When I play against Vladimir, for the first time, I was a low elo scrub, but like he just queued me on cooldown. And I was like, what the hell is this ability? And then I played Vladimir. I was like, oh, it's got like a 15-second cooldown. I can just like run up and hit him during this.
And they added a nice bar for you.
They helped the idiots like
Mark.
me out later. This is like season 2.
Yeah, before. All right. Well, Honda MVP for this time around, my friends. Who is your rookie of the split? Go.
Right now, a Blaze Olive. A Blolive.
I was in the Danny camp, but I feel like I'm getting convinced more by the Ablaze Olive argument. Man, like he has just actually been legitimately good. Like he is actually really, really good. And
what are you laughing at?
So it's just like
That's funny.
It's just not even within the context of a rookie is what I'm getting at, right? Like I think he's actually just played very well. The fact that mid lane is a really stacked role is convincing me a little bit here too. And also, to be honest, I do think it's easier to look good on a good team. And I think Danny is good. And I may go back and forth on this. But, like, oh my God, man, a Blaze Olive, he doesn't have anywhere near the same level of support, I think, that Danny has, right? Like, the surrounding cast is not really comparable. EG is slamming. And
Is he getting hipster bonus points for you for wanting to he's underappreciated, so you jump to?
Well, maybe a little bit, but also like I just think if you're on a good team and you're an ADC, it's easy. It's like the easiest role to look good at when everyone around you is good, right? Because you kind of just sit there and you farm and then you do stuff in the team fights. I'm not saying that's all he's doing. I'm just saying he has an easier job than a Blaze Olive, I think.
Yeah. I'm still in the Danny camp.
All right, let's
so
hear
we've got 3 different cases. Mark's already left. You're in a Blaze Olive. Azael is on the pathway there. He's halfway over to joining.
He's got
you.
one leg over the fence, but he's kind of looking back at Danny still. Like,
so I do agree that very oftentimes AD carries have super easy jobs. But to me, the coolest thing about Danny is that he has not been a cleanup AD carry. His best clips and his best moments are these 1v1 outplays or these flash forward pentakills, this type of stuff. And he is a big part of the reason why Evil Geniuses this year is a completely different discussion topic from last year. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. Ablaze has a very good resume too, but I am still in Camp Danny.
And I think on the Danny side, one of my arguments for him was also that it's like, he's probably going to get an all-pro vote for me, right? Like I think he's going to be my probably like 3rd team all-pro, and I'll think about it more. But like that's just really impressive. You're a rookie and you're maybe third best in your position as far as this split. You know, Blaze Olive, I think, is lower in the rankings. But then, like, how much do you care about how stacked the role is versus not?
Right.
Like, a Blaze Olive might be 5th or 6th, but it's literally only imports above him. So it's like,
Yeah, and AD carry the position feels a little weak right now with some of the turn down that some of the players had. It's like FBI number 1, probably tactical number 2.
Sven hasn't been playing as well.
Sven hasn't looked great. You know, you start getting into this like, well, he could easily get your 3rd place vote. I think it's interesting because both players have pretty clear weaknesses as well. Like, to take the detractor side, like Blaze Olive dies too much. You saw in the second Tahm Kench game, sometimes he's just like, I'm gonna make this play, tunnels in 1v3 and kills himself, and you're like,
I respect it.
I mean, I respect it. I'm glad he's aggressive and not afraid. But at the same time, you could be a little bit better about it.
Yeah.
And then for Danny, you know, like, he has a relatively weak laning phase, and some of that's, you know, like, they don't really focus on bot lane in the early laning phase, but I think sometimes it gets a little bit too swept up in that, like, well, he's playing with Ignar, and it's like, well, their roaming percent actually isn't that high, you know, like, they're just actually not scary in lane, which is fine for their team on how they actually play the game level, because they need some stability somewhere on the map, and their bot lane doesn't hard lose. They don't get, like, killed 7 times or something in a game, which, you know, I'd take a small CS deficit to then be a monster in the mid game who is not just a cleanup carry, like, for sure, very good. But those are the two things, like, one's too aggressive and kills himself sometimes, one has a bit of a weak laning phase. Both are very important for their teams right now.
And I think that's, like, totally normal for rookies, right? That it's like you have these clear areas of improvement. I'm just excited that the level at which they are coming out, you know, especially on the Danny side, and this won't count in towards who I vote for, but the fact that he didn't even play Academy and that he's playing this well, like, straight jumping amateur to LCS, I think is so impressive. And you know, I actually think overall, just something that it feels like the community is maybe overlooking a little bit is how many, like, young players are actually in the league right now. I feel like it's got to be more than we've had, at least in the last 5 years. I can't say to, like, season 1 and stuff, because probably there was lots of young players and everything when, like, LCS first started. But I mean, God, like, there's so many players from Academy being moved up, being tried, and it feels really, really good to actually see a number of them having good splits and improving.
I feel like there was a time where they actually changed how rookie of the split was voted for, because, like, some splits had like 2 candidates, and you're like, all right, I guess I'll vote for the one.
Yep. And we've got Danny, we've got Blaze, we've got Revenge, we've got basically all of Flyquest. We've got a lot of different players.
Niles and Iconic as well.
Yep.
I mean, Niles obviously not on the starting roster anymore, but for a period of time, you had that. If you did go back to, like, splits versus year kind of thing.
I wanted to shout out Revenge because he messaged me on my birthday, and I found that, and when he was looking at it, the last message had been like 4 years ago when he had made the decision to quit League of Legends and go to medical school. And my messages to him were like, oh man, I'm really excited to see this. I really want to see you in the LCS. And it was all like laying out these things. Hope you come back, you know, good choice, you know, have fun in medical school. You know, it's going to be a great life decision, but I'm really going to miss you in the LCS. And then he's like, hey, look what happened. It actually worked. Like, and he's really been playing well. Immortals obviously right now feel like they're even peaking a bit. So that I feel like he's another kind of dark horse, I guess, to this race. Third, I think, even though most people think of, you know, Danny and Blaze Olive.
I don't know if he should have played enough games too, right? And I think Jenkins would count as a rookie. And Jenkins
he must
really
not count as a rookie, or else I feel like there would be more.
I feel like he does count as a rookie.
It's just a bit so much back and forth.
I think just with the roster situation, no one's seriously considering him.
Yeah. Because he has played great.
I mean, we have a lot of good candidates.
There are, and that's like that to me is just really exciting. I think that's actually I'm feeling more hopeful about NA amateur and, like, the future of NA talent than I have been in a lot of years.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You guys, I'm drinking, and you guys are both silent.
Hey, Azael, what's your take on the prevailing negativity in the esports community?
Great transition, Mark.
It's just awkward because I don't usually do any transitions, and it's your own kind of thing. So it's just like when you start drinking.
I was drinking, so it's up to one of you two. You know, it's your thing. You could have just said it.
It's on me. I admit that I should have seen the drink, and I should have taken the transition.
Well, this is making it much better, Mark, so great job.
Hey, Azael, what's your take on
this? Be careful what you ask for. You wanted a transition?
True. That was horrible.
I give you the most on-the-nose transition.
That was truly the worst transition in dive history, and that's a low bar.
Wait. You sounded kind of negative right now.
Thanks.
There's a problem in sports.
So I mean, this is I don't know. Probably a lot of people have seen the tweet. If you haven't, I mean, I'm basically just like my feeling has been, and this has been building up for a couple of years, and it's not just in anything. It's really like I was referencing a pro league thing, but the more I thought about it, I just think it's like a League of Legends thing, period, because I've been feeling this as far as playing the game too, is that people have become more and more negative, more and more like looking at the glass being half empty, focusing on the mistake in a play instead of an outplay, focusing on the thing that went wrong instead of the thing that went right. And to me, it has built up to a point where it just feels like sometimes overwhelming. And I was just feeling like really frustrated by this. And I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. I'm going to say something, right? And I was thinking about, like, I always think back to when I think about this topic about the faker play, right? And that's why I put the screenshot in. That's why I referenced that. And it's just like, that is a perfect example of, this is the literal most famous play ever. It's the blind pick game 5, you know, Faker versus Ryu, Zed 1v1. Faker does this like insane mechanical outplay, wins a 1v1 that no one thought he would win, blah, blah, blah. And both Shens don't use the ult, right? And it's like, there's some reasons that they maybe didn't use the ult. That's not really the point. Like there's like kind of a 4v4 happening bot, or they're pushing a bot, whatever. It's more just about like, that's an easy thing that you could have gravitated to and been like, Insects, the reason they lost, he ruined Ryu's career by not ulting, you know? And it's like, well, even if he couldn't have channeled, he should have pressed it for the shield, and that would have saved, you know? It's like you could easily go down that negative route, but I didn't feel like people did. And I feel like more in the past, people were looking at the positives and the cool parts of plays rather than hyper focusing on the negatives, and at sometimes at the expense of considering the positives at all. And it's just something that I've just been frustrated about, and I'm not really sure like how to solve or anything, but you know, it's just kind of feeling frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a balance, and even when the game is new, you know, some of the most iconic moments are also making fun of bad plays.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that TP sucked. Every time someone says it, like Medic said it this last weekend or whatever, I got it flooded with you know, mentions and stuff, because you know, some of the moments are like laughing at you know, comically funny blunders or whatever. So it's definitely always a balance. I have examined this more from the solo queue mentality, and something that people have always been complaining about for League of Legends, which is, you know, the deterioration of ranked community and the, you know, interactions of players there too. And I've thought about it. I've always felt like no matter what game it is, when it's brand new, there's so many new things to try. And so everyone's thinking about, what can I do and what can my team do, you know, positively. And so you're always trying to figure stuff out. And so naturally, the longer that any game goes on, and League has now been a very, very, you know, long-standing game, you're going to have more and more buildup of, you are solidified in what your view is and what you know is right or what you think is right. And so that will cause you to shift your area of examination from this creative place to nitpicking and taking away other areas.
Yeah. And like you can create some systems to try and minimize that. But I think, you know, there's a million reasons people start getting more negative over time. Just like, I don't play the game as much now. So
I feel like I tilt quicker than I used to.
I feel like a lot
I'm an old grumpy man.
For whatever reason, there's a million reasons it could be that. I also look at it from like the traditional sports angle, because there were a lot of people in the thread about that, talking about how it feels like there's less of that in traditional sports. And I think there's a lot of really interesting reasons behind that, because League is like a zero-sum game. Like, in order for someone to make a cool play, someone has to die. Whereas like sometimes someone just like hits a nasty fadeaway, they play good defense, you play good offense, and like you just celebrate the guy who like hit the shot.
But I feel like the league take would be shitting on the person for playing bad defense, even if they played good defense.
Exactly, but I think it's still more obvious, because like if you take a 1v1 trade and you fight each other and you both ignite, which happened in, I forget which game it was this weekend. It was like Viego versus Gwen, and the Gwen is not used to the guy taking ignite, and so miscalculated the level 1 all-in or level 2, whatever it was. You know, like people just naturally be like, well, you shouldn't have done that because mathematically you lose that now. Versus like, I think you have like video game, which is like more numerically based, you could argue.
Yeah.
That like makes it more binary, where it's like, well, you just shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Whereas in pro sports, it's like, well, I don't really even know what this human being is capable of. I just saw him put his hand up and jump to try and block the shot. I don't even know what he should have done different. You just accept that, like, hey, the guy hit the shot. That's nuts.
I use something from tennis a lot: unforced errors versus forced errors.
Yeah.
And there's more gray room in this because it's not like, oh yeah, you hit the ball out all by yourself there. Great job.
Yeah, it's like,
error.
well, there was a crazy spin on it, or like, you chopped it and like the guy wasn't, whatever. To that point though, like in pro sports, if someone snaps the football and goes flying over the quarterback's head and it's a comical play, they'll laugh at it like that TP play. But it's that gray area of plays where it's like, well, that was probably just a good play and we're humans and we make mistakes. And those are the ones that I feel like are more negative in esports than in pro sports.
And to me, like, to be clear, and I think some people maybe misinterpreted it a little bit. Most people I think got my point and kind of, related. But I have no problem with critiquing plays or criticism of plays. It's just when it becomes so overwhelmingly negative, or that like a bad play or a player having a bad game equals game is bad, league is trash, team is trash, like this sort of stuff, where it just feels like it blows out to like, just this kind of ridiculous amount where it's like you're not even allowed to like enjoy the game. Or if you say something positive about a game that had mistakes in it, even if it's literally just that was a fun game, like you're gonna get roasted in the comments for it. And it's kind of like this negative backlash on a lot of positivity that then discourages people from saying positive things about games as well. And it kind of just is this like, this snowballing effect. Like the TSMC9 game had lots of mistakes, but I thought it was a genuinely really fun game to watch. Like I thought it was back and forth. There was like tension on who was going to win. There was a lot of good plays. There were lots of mistakes too. You can criticize Perks a lot. You can criticize the TP decision a lot. Like there was things to criticize for sure. And they should be criticized. But to me, a mistake does not make a bad game. A bad pick and draft does not make a bad game. An item choice that isn't ideal does not make a bad game, right? Like these things can culminate in a boring game or whatever, but it is not just like an immediate 1-to-1. And so I was just surprised by the amount of like people that were like, that game sucked. Like it was trash. Like, how could you think this is good? Everything sucked. It just felt like so, oh my God, this is just kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, especially even that last play, like Lost and Sword Art outplayed the 2v2 at Dragon really hard. Like there are even...
They outplayed both 2v2s.
Yeah, like you can... Yeah, the TP play was questionable, but like mechanically, hey, some of these people still made pretty nuts plays. So I think there is the part that people choose to focus on. Most people would prefer to critique for whatever psychological reason you want to get into.
I think it makes you feel smart.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, yeah. It's a gray scale. I wouldn't go completely in the camp either way.
Yeah, you want to do both,
yeah,
right?
You need a genuine balance of just reacting genuinely to
absolutely.
what is going on.
I mean, to me, like what I always strive for, and I'm not trying to say I always hit it, but like what my goal is to give honest praise and honest criticism, right? If I think something was bad, I try to criticize, but I try to maybe give reasoning or thought process behind what they could have been looking for. And when I think something's good, I try to really praise that and call that out and explain why I think things are good. And I think walking that line is fun. I think when it gets too overly negative, it can really like, I don't know, just almost feel like everything sucks. What's the point of watching kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And I don't want it to go down that road. So, I'm definitely trying to be cognizant of it and hoping that just talking about it will make more people feel okay to talk about it too, and to like take the kind of positive side of things sometimes.
Yeah, I'm never going to insult a player again. See if I can get through this podcast.
You absolutely are within 10 minutes. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's just when it's overwhelmingly on one side.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Same thing on praising too. It's just as bad if people are just like, someone flashes in the wall, misses every skill shot, and they're like, wow,
where'd that wall come from? Holy
incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
He's just too tanky.
Yeah, exactly. So to me that stuff is like just as bad. And hopefully people can in the community can find maybe more of a balance.
All right, patch 11.15. Hot off the presses, baby. There's not a lot of really exciting changes, though, at least for me.
Yeah.
I was most initially surprised that they're buffing Trundle again, because Trundle's
good.
Trundle's already in, and it is a very good buff. Q is the most spam spell. You're using this literally all game, and you're taking half a second off of it. Then that it's definitely good. They also gave Sejuani the classic Sejuani buff, where they just give Sejuani a little bit more damage on the second swing of W. They've done that several times, where they're like, this tank, what does it need? More swing and health percentage damage on the W, which is an interesting direction to go, like continually trying to buff tank damage instead of tank tank stats. But yeah, my jungle review was very quick for this one, and it was mostly like, all right, what mid laners do I watch out for? I guess Qiyana's coming back. That's going to be scary.
I felt like a couple things that were noticeable. I mean, I don't think that the Blitzcrank buff is that insane. He got like 3 armor and a little bit of damage on Q. But Blitz is, again, one of those champions that I already see. So I always, like, when I'm already seeing something and then it gets buffed, I'm like, ooh, this could get really big. Rel more along that line, because the Rel W cooldown got reduced. And like that was what immediately started people playing it less, so that has now been significantly reduced. And again, we were already seeing some of this champion, so like I think Rel is going to be all over. I think we're going to see Blitzcrank still situationally, because it's just like more of a hit or miss style champion, and not everyone's going to be comfortable playing it. The one I was kind of like most interested in was the Cassio change, because that felt like for early levels it could actually be a really big deal. At level 1, your E literally does double damage. Yeah. So like if you have that level 2 play where you're playing it aggressive, you hit the Q, the spammable damage is really big. It's plus 10 damage at all ranks. So like as you go higher, it's less of a percentage of an increase. But I still think theoretically it could be a big deal in some matchups, and maybe that'll like push Cassio into a place where people are at least considering the champion.
Yeah, I mean, if people are going to be playing Ryze, Azir, and like, you know, Ryze was really prevalent this weekend. You might start seeing more of that kind of caster squad that always shows up together, which is like, oh, here's Azir and Ryze. Well, here comes Cassio and Hori, and Syndra's going to show up a little bit for a little bit more early game version, and you kind of get those 5, which are the staples of control mages. So maybe you start seeing a little bit more Cassio into those kinds of situations. I still feel like she's a little awkward in terms of just like play pattern, because she's so immobile and doesn't really have any defensive tools. Like even Syndra stun is so much better to have than Cassio R.
The W I think can be really powerful against some champions. So like, you know, the grounding effect I think can be really, really nice depending on the team. But I kind of agree with you that we will see it less. I also am of the opinion that Cassio requires a lot of games. I think it's one of those champions that like unless you're really good at it, it's not a good champion. I do think just like the movement paradigm with like how you kite, how it's like
a lot of control mages, man. You know, like Cassio or Azir and Orianna are both also like that.
Yep. So I just see so many players actually kind of like messing up on how you actually move and kite with the E, because you literally like to kite perfectly with this champion, you basically just click in one direction and then mash E, and your character turns and E's as you're going along. And I see so many people like clicking back and forth, and it's like, you know, you're actually like optimized doing that as if you just let your character walk in a straight line. Like there's just things that just feel weird about how you play it.
Yeah.
And the really good Cassio players can really calculate how much damage they have with their mana pool, because that's mostly the limiting factor in early games to like sometimes get all-ins and stuff and really take over a lane. But it'll be interesting. The Gwen change I also think is really, really big. Gwen's attack speed at level 1 on the E, like the attack speed bonus literally got cut in half, went from 40% to 20%. So like I kind of think Gwen's probably dead at this point. It's taken a few nerfs, and this one feels like a really, really big nerf, because people max Q, so you generally just put the 1 point in the E till you start. It's like your secondary skill. So I think it's actually a pretty significant nerf.
What about Viego solo lane? Because a lot of the changes were pretty targeted at that. Healing off minions, damage dealt against monsters went up again. I feel like that's the second time that they did that. So I don't know. I feel like Viego has just become jungler probably.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like if like Aurelia and some of those champions are kind of like moving in and taking that space, because we saw some Aurelia coming out, and some of these champions that have maybe been getting like nudges over time and starting to get some play might become more popular.
Wait, I'm for sure gonna play some Shyvana. Okay, Shyvana's in there. That's my new jungle. This is actually pretty big. Cooldown on Q 2 seconds early. That's gonna help out early clear speed a lot.
AP or AD?
AP ratios are getting buffed. I've always liked, and there's been a very good bump in win rate for going the tankier, Frostfire.
Bruiser build.
Yeah, which is like the old Glacial Mallet style Shyvana, and just run people down. I always like those ones, but AP ratios are also getting buffed, so.
I always hated AP Shyvana.
You mentioned Shyvana a lot, so that's why that one caught my eye.
Yeah, I mean, I like Shyvana. I used to play a lot of her, and it was the tanky, I'm an idiot, like just gonna like run into your face. You'll try and kill me, and I'm gonna ult away. But it feels like for a while, the AP Shyvana, while not the better for solo queue, depending on especially your current standing, it feels like the top end has always been a little bit better. People in pro play usually when they played it, I think we're playing the AP Shyvana build, and this is just going more into that. So I'm a little sad. I want tanky brain off Shyvana, not e-spam.
Well, it sounds like you could probably still play it. You could probably still do like Iceborne Titanic,
It's
right?
good,
Yeah, I know. But the buffs did not help me in my
the Q cooldown.
They help you a bit.
The Q
They
cooldown
do.
helps. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the AP ratios. And I'm like, man, I don't care about this AP ratio on my Q.
Contracts might be happy that Nidalee's getting a buff. I don't think we have literally any other junglers.
Used to play it, didn't you?
Junglers that are like really. Yeah.
Oh, Spica.
It
I was
feels like
gonna
a really
Spica.
targeted
Yeah.
one. Okay, Spica was
Closer
huge
hard
for
spammed
Nidalee,
it at the start of summer last
Yeah,
year, too.
we've got a few.
But Contracts is the only
Closer
one.
lost every game, unfortunately, with it, but
Contracts is the only one who's actually been playing it without buffs recently,
okay.
and so I feel like it's targeted for him because people ban it away.
it's a player buff
when they face
not a champion buff.
They gave you more HP. I feel like
But yeah, that is a really good point about Spica though.
Spica was really good with the Renekton Italy stuff, so that'll be pretty interesting. I'm excited for the new patch. See what's happening with that. So this coming weekend, week 9, I actually can't believe it. It feels pretty weird that we're already to the end of the split. I always feel like it goes by so insanely fast, and it's like, oh my god, it's playoffs. Oh my god, it's worlds.
How
But,
time flies. You know, old people say that a lot too.
yeah, we're old, so we say that. So that checks out.
you know what made it go by fast?
What?
Usually week 6, 7, 8 are the doldrums. And
doldrums.
The doldrums, because you're watching these teams who are like not great play games.
Yeah,
Golden Guardians and Flyquest having their mini revivals during those weeks.
the roster swaps.
Yeah, and all that stuff actually saved it because the top of the table is always interesting. It's when you're like, all right, 7's playing 10. I don't really care. But because these things were happening, I actually really enjoyed watching them for the last couple weeks, which has like catapulted me through the worst part of the split. What are you laughing about that for?
It's just like, I don't know. It's just the way.
Normally those games are go next fast, like get me to the other matchups. But now I actually care that like I want Golden Guardians, to probably get into playoffs. Whereas normally I'm like,
starting to look kind of grim for them though, because they went 0-3 this weekend, right? Like it was 2-1, 2-1, and it's like, okay, you're pretty good. Some of these losses were pretty close, and actually like maybe could have been wins pretty easily, but they're still a couple games back. Let's look at the actual
they're one
standings.
game behind Flyquest and one game ahead of CLG.
Okay,
And so like technically anything can happen right now, but they also play each other on Friday.
I feel like that's going to dictate a lot
That's
of it.
pretty much going to decide it. If Flyquest wins, it's also for head-to-head because they're tied
Oh,
2-2.
yeah.
So if you win the head-to-head for Flyquest, you get a 2-game lead and you get the head-to-head. For Golden Guardians, it ties you but gives you the head-to-head as well. So it's a pretty monstrous game on Friday between those two teams.
Golden Guardians have a pretty. They have 100 Thieves on Saturday, and then they have Immortals on Sunday. Flyquest have CLG and Immortals, so they do have the easier schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm actually really excited for the kind of like final playoff race because to your point, I mean, I am more excited, I think, for Golden Guardians to make playoffs than Flyquest right now. I just think that they have looked better, so I would be more interested to see them play best 5.
I think I agree. Are you guys more interested for the cutoff at the bottom race or the race for first place and playoff buys and stuff?
Momentarily the bottom, but I care more about the top because the top teams are largely already qualified and like first, second, and second, third. Like, yeah, there's playoff buys in the picture and stuff.
Momentarily. So how long does this moment last?
Until the end of
Because
week
we've got 1 week. Yeah. Okay. Then your answer is just it's the bottom.
Yeah, momentarily.
Until it's over.
Until I don't think that they have any chance in best of 5s versus a lot of the top teams.
Also,
but
I mean, also TSM and 100 Thieves are both 2 games up,
yeah,
right? So they would have to have a really bad weekend, and EG/Cloud9 would have to have a really good weekend. So it feels unlikely that they would get unseated.
100 Thieves do have a tough schedule. It's TSM and EG.
Mm-hmm. And they had a rough week, so I mean, it could happen. But still, then EG would have to like beat them, and they probably realistically have to win out, right?
EG also has a tough schedule. I think they play TL, TSM, and 100 Thieves.
And they probably need a 3-0. I think Cloud9 looked better this weekend as well, so it's like maybe they could do it, maybe EG could do it, but just the fact that you're 2 games back with 3 games remaining makes that playoff race unlikely.
Yeah. Oh, it's C9. Excuse me. EG's playing C9 TL and 100 Thieves.
That being said, like I actually think that EG and C9 like absolutely can contend with those teams at the top. Like I think that it's been nice to see Blabber actually look better because I feel like I don't know if I'm just being kind of like colored by this weekend, but it feels like at least for the last couple weeks, I have felt like he has been doing better. And it had been a while since I felt like Blabber was really in form. I think that The current meta is kind of helping him. I mean, he's really good on Olaf. I think he's really good on Xin, those style of champions that seem to be getting through draft a little bit more. So I'm going to be excited to see like if that trend continues, because we could end up with like a really competitive top 4, top 5. Because I wouldn't be shocked, if EG can take down one of those top 2 teams. I wouldn't be shocked if C9 could do it. I definitely think that TSM has been like the most consistent and hasn't really had a big fall off. Like 100 Thieves feels like they're kind of slowing down towards the end. But no, I'm pretty excited for both EG and C9.
My biggest thing for Cloud9 is how much Fudge does for the team, especially with all of the interviews and talking about his communication. First, Vulcan gave him credit the last weekend for calling out, "Hey, I'm going to get dove soon. Come here." Boom, they win the game off of him roaming up and protecting him from the dive. Then I was on Bud Light League Lounge with Blabber, and Blabber was saying Fudge is the best on his team at communicating and playing for jungle and talking about that. And they're focused so heavily on playing for jungle that every player is always, thinking about
Fudge is the guy.
These steps. So
MVP.
He's got good references on top of his good play that he's already shown just in the games. So to me, that's one of the biggest building factors I have for Cloud9, because also in the games, like Vulcan, despite, you can give credit to Fudge for calling for that play the first time around, but I felt like he has been completely nailing it last month.
Yeah, I feel like C9 is close to returning to form, much closer than like TL, for instance, who was another team that was struggling compared to Spring. Perks and Sven still feel like they have a little bit of catching up to do. But to your point about Blabber, like that TSM game they lost, like Blabber was murdering TSM. Yeah. He made so many plays after not being ahead on Olaf. I think that was the impressive part for me. Is like Olaf from ahead, you run at them and they die. But he was actually making plays often in side lanes from behind and having to like actually pick the windows pretty well. And
they did not draft him any shields or speeds. So that was not like, oh, we're gonna draft around Blabber's Olaf, which they do very successfully quite often. But
that's a good point, because it used to always be with like Seraphine and stuff like that.
That was just
even
Olaf.
Like Kindred stuff. Like they would always, I feel like, play around Blabber. And so it's good to see him like not the focal point. If it is going to be more like, hey, Fudge is getting Gwen and Viego and Aurelia and like whatever the carries are right now, like we should invest resources into him. It means you can't probably be investing in Blabber quite as much. So
do you think that Fudge should be in the consideration for MVP? Because I feel like Cloud9 has not done that well. So like he hasn't been getting as much talk, but like individually, he's been so good, even in losses.
I think he should be in consideration for sure. I don't think he's a front runner.
He's not a front runner. He's like a dark horse or something. What if they 3-0 this last weekend and they finish first?
And he pentakills and gets
he's just popping off, He's doing his thing. He's calling for dives top and Vulcan's roaming.
Yeah, he's for sure in there. One of the biggest things right now towards the end of the split is that there's so much competition in the top 5 teams. Even on any given day, that would be a difficult bet to take.
I mean, Thundo.
Except for TL, who's number 5.
Yeah, TL's probably in their own little tier.
I would still separate as top 5 and bottom 5 teams.
Yeah, but TL never beats anyone above them. That's the big detraction I have from them, is that they literally
never. They got one.
They have
EG once.
Okay, they got one.
I believe it.
You can't say never.
In 3 round robins, right? So it's like, yikes. They have one more chance. I think they play Cloud9, because that's also like the bet that Crumbs and guys had, whether or not they were going to beat a team above them in the standings. But like that is like a shocking stat for a team that was in the spring finals and has consistently been really good over the last couple of years, to just like be the guys that never beat one of the top 4 teams, one time in a triple round robin. That's a lot of games. That's 12 games. So they have one more remaining. So they are now 1-10, and they possibly going 1-11 against.
They got
top
EG
4
one
teams.
more time too.
Okay, so they're 1-9 right now.
I feel like Team Liquid has been suffering from so much playmaking pressure on Core JJ. It is literally all on him, because Santorin, medical reasons, can't play anymore, and so Armeo is in, who I think is actually a good job. I think he gets overly flamed, too much criticism, but he is not the proactive mindset, more so for junglers. He's much more of the control and reactive, and, lanes call for what they need. And Team Liquid also has this prevailing style of trying to set up way ahead of time, having all these controlled plays, minimize risk. And so actually isn't that surprising that on a downward turn they're as consistent as not taking a lot of surprise games.
Well,
Because if that is your approach to the game, and this is not even individual strategies, because they've actually run several different strategies, it's just that if your whole prevailing view on the game is around these concentrated choices that you want to make and you're trying to minimize
perfect prep,
exactly, then it does kind of make sense. But when you watch the games, I feel like there's so much pressure on Core JJ to make all of these big plays for them, even when they have, a lot of resources top and they're getting fed top laner or something like that.
Yeah, I think individually they can skill check pretty much anyone in the standings, but because they don't have like what feels like right now a great way to win the game. Even the Alphari snowball top, which was heavily talked about on the analyst desk this weekend, like they do a good job actually getting him ahead. Like Core JJ on the Leona games and like getting up there and actually snowballing him, they do a really good job of getting him ahead. The problem is like mid game, there's a dragon contest. Like how do we do it? And they seem to have no clear plan on how to start a fight at these situations to help then actually win the game.
Yeah.
Which is where all the teams above them are actually pretty good. I mean, as much as people want to flame a lot of those teams, like they're all honestly good about calling their shot when they want to go in. Even some of the teams below them, like Dignitas, are better about making a play. They're just individually a lot weaker.
I really liked Alfari's interview though that Dash did with him this last weekend, where he's asking him, and he was like,
"Why are you so good?"
Well, he also asked him, like, "Would you rather be the team that gets consistent good early leads and then fumbles it at the end, or the other way around?"
Of course, you'd rather win.
Yeah, of course. Like the answer is, well, you want to win the game, Nexus explode.
Yeah.
But Alfari was like, well, the easier part to him was fixing the late stuff.
Yeah.
And so if that is actually true and they can hammer that out in time, then you can see one of the issues that people always throw onto Team Liquid of being they're always just this methodical, slower setup or whatever. If they can smooth out hey, this is our go-to, we snowball, we get this early lead, and we can transition it to late game victories, then you finally solve the problem. Mark's not buying
I'm not buying what he's selling because it's a play style thing. It's not for me. Like I think it's really hard to get a group of generally more reactive players or whatever you want to talk about. 'Cause, I mean, tactical is aggressive, right? But like as a core, the way they approach the game is not super.
As a core,
I hate you. My point is, it's harder to change. Like, hey, let's go make plays versus like, oh, we threw up Baron a couple times, right? Like, if they were just making Baron mistakes for these losses, I think that'd be an easier like write off of like, hey, we get leads, we're really good,
Don't do that.
and we throw up Baron, so let's fix that. But if it's like, hey, we kind of get leads, but then we don't know what to do with them, that's I think a lot harder to fix.
Well, and one of the things that to me actually made me lose a lot of confidence in Team Liquid was Tactical talking on Next Level. His interview, I don't know if you guys caught that episode, but he was basically talking about how like the mindset that it came off that they were in was that like basically you have to have the perfect play, right? He was kind of laughing about like, oh, like we don't go for like the like random stuff, right? Like we don't go for the risky stuff. Like we clear out all the wards, we set up all the vision, we take the guaranteed play, right? And we're very methodical about like not doing anything silly and like taking the sure play. And to me, that actually like he was saying it as a positive, but like to me, I was hearing negative. I was hearing like, I just don't think the game is played currently in this like perfect world where you have all vision, you have all boxes checked, and everything is perfect for every setup. There is some inherent risk, and if you watch like the top LPL teams or you watch top teams from any league, like they are taking some risk and they are betting on execution. They are setting up as much as they can reasonably. Of course, you want to have good setup, but you have to take some risks. You have to be able to start plays, and to me, that was like so indicative of what I see from them in their games, where they have Alphari way ahead, right? Like compare the Alphari GP game against, I think it was Golden Guardians against Licorice, right? Where he got like massively ahead.
Yeah.
Compare that to like the Huni Jace game and how the two players played very differently with their lead, right? Like there is some risk of like Huni maybe losing his lead because he's roaming around, but he was just running around the map and going mid lane, sieging there, looking for a gank, moving. Like they're constantly trying to apply pressure with this advantage. And it felt like TL basically like Alphari creates his own lead and then they did a good job extending it, but then they didn't really do anything with it. And that's how a lot of their games feel, is that they're waiting for this perfect play that never comes. And then eventually a fight goes bad and all of a sudden they're losing. And it's like, what the hell, how did this happen?
It's kind of similar to my feeling of like there being so much pressure on Core JJ to do all, be all the things, make every play and start up a lot of those. Because it does feel like, they don't have a lot of different points of pressure. It often comes down to that grouping for objective and trying to kick it off that way. And then if you compare this to Evil Geniuses, would you say Evil Geniuses?
Yeehaw! That's what I hear.
They're definitely the other end of the scale. Are they the current best team in the LCS?
Yes.
For Summer, they have a chance to prove it this coming weekend with their difficult matchups that they have. I believe it would secure them as the if you're looking at Summer schedule only.
Yep. I mean, I think like, so Summer schedule only, like they're very close with 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
But also like part of the reason that I think they are the best is not like looking at the entire split. It's looking at recency as well, because they started out the split like 50-50. They were like 5-5 or 6-5 or whatever, right? And then since then they've been like 11-2 or 12-2 or something. So like the run that they have been on, it has felt like
what's our freak meme? If you just take out all the free losses at the beginning,
If you take out all the bad parts, it's good.
if we just take out all the bad parts.
Well, we're talking about who's the best team right now, right?
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. Don't think it applies, but I know what you're saying. So I think they're really, really good right now. I think that almost when I've heard other players talk about them, it feels like they're being underrated, which makes me maybe think they're not as good in scrims. And like I've heard some of that, and I could also see like just based on EG playstyle, like them doing some dumb shit in scrims and losing.
I can't say what happened, but let's just say I was somewhere and someone showed me a screenshot of a level 1 of a scrim.
Yeah.
And it was the trollest thing. Someone's like, "Tell me what's wrong with the screenshot." Instantly, I was like, my eyes open. I was like, "What is happening here?" So yeah, there's definitely some scrims.
I mean,
I've seen them troll on stage. Okay, so I could definitely imagine
nothing's off the table.
Yeah,
but they're really good, and I just like that style of League of Legends where they take risks, but they set up and try to like tip the scales as much in their favor as they can before they take the risks. They set up the waves properly. They take these fights, but they're believing in their execution.
and like they're just willing to do more. I don't know if like unnatural to word, but like weirder things, like the game with the lane swaps this weekend where they're just like running top to bot and like finding all these plays and stuff. Like a lot of teams.
Yeah, Impact is willing to kill both solo laners by himself.
Yeah,
by
he's
the way.
willing to.
Nobody asked him, but he was willing the whole time. You should have just asked.
I just mean like, hey, they put him mid. This guy goes top. You know, like a lot of teams are like, I'm a top laner. I'm gonna go top. And Impact's like, I'll go where you need me. I'll kill him anywhere. Which I think that's what makes them hard to probably play against a little bit. Is like you just actually don't know what they're gonna do at any given moment.
They also have the killer instinct when they're ahead, and that's something that people have been critical about some of the other teams of like, oh, they're too slow to close out even if they're ahead. EG is definitely going to dive you. They are going to try to like really push the pace of the game, and I'm really excited to see how they look in playoffs.
Are 100 Thieves actually slipping, or are they just coming up against the teams that are on the rise? They got upset by Immortals. And then Cloud9 is having this resurgence. Their win over 100 Thieves was part of that resurgence and part of people having confidence in them again. But I don't feel like there have been super loose parts in the 100 Thieves lineup. Maybe we haven't seen Abadaga shine as bright as he did at the very beginning, but it doesn't seem like we point at some big, gaping hole here that's going to cause a collapse. So I still feel pretty confident heading towards playoffs.
Yeah, I'm feeling reasonably confident. It is starting to like slip a little bit more because at first I was like, well, there was like, you're just kind of some experimentation. You did the Azael thing, you did the Tahm Kench bot thing. Like maybe you don't really count those that much. And like, but it's like they basically have the inverse record of EG, right? Where they started out with like 2 losses in 12 games or whatever. And now they're basically a 50-50 team or thereabouts over the last like 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it is now. And at a certain point, it's like you can't ignore everything. It doesn't feel like they are really doing a lot of experimentation in these last couple of weeks. So like I don't feel like I can kind of give them that kind of get out of jail free card anymore. And to your point, like I don't feel like any of them are like, this guy's been so bad. It's just that they haven't been as dominant. And when I try to think about the differences between now and the start, it did feel like Abadaga was just running over games, right? And whether that was like the meta read or whatever, like that's what Perks was talking about on Next Level, where he was saying, hey, like he thinks 100 Thieves actually aren't as good as people think. They just had an early read. He's like, Reaper asked some of his buddies, and they gave him the deets or whatever it was he said. But basically something to that effect, which was kind of funny. And so he attributes most of their success to meta read. If that's becoming true, that is kind of interesting. But I feel like almost every game Abadag was popping off, and it's been a while since I've felt that way.
I feel like I'm on the a little bit pessimistic side of it. You know, I'm not. I agree that like they're still really good, and there's not like one key player that I'm negative about them.
Joking.
I hate that. No, I just think like that's even that CLG game they should have lost. Realistically, like they should have had an 0-3 weekend, and they did not have the toughest strength schedule. This next weekend is going to be a lot harder, so I don't think you can write it off necessarily as like, oh well, they came up against these two teams who were killing it in C9 and Immortals,
who had been 3-7 or whatever. I think you said.
Like Immortals was on one of the worst loss streaks before they had this.
But
weekend.
That's the whole again, it's beyond the streaks. It's like what the team is doing now, and I feel that's the whole point of teams that are killing it, having their resurgences, playing a lot better. Yes, it's a stark difference between what they're putting up now and why they have these records leading up to it.
And I think, I used to watch 100 Thieves, and I'd be like, their bot lane literally never loses lane, and they basically don't get 2v2 killed. That's been happening a little bit more. Like, I'm one of the biggest FBI fanboys around, I think, and like, he is like not bad, but not like the dominant thing that just has permanent bot prio and just hard camps everyone. And then it's like, oh, Closer can get dragged whenever he wants and all this stuff. Like, I just feel like a lot of those individual advantages, like they're not bad, but it's not nearly as pronounced as it was, where it felt like they just ran over teams, which to me is not even just like the meta thing to go against like some of the perks and like, oh, it's just their comps. It's like, well, they're playing what everyone else is playing right now at this point, and like, did they just have an insane read on Karma Zin? Not really. It wasn't like that took over the world, So I don't know. I think that they're struggling. I still think they're top 4. I don't put them in the TL tier.
No, they're definitely not TL.
Yeah.
TL to me is their own tier because
they're the separator, I guess.
Exactly, right? Like they are literally the line. They beat everyone below them. They lose to everyone above them. It's like they're the TL tier.
The bouncer.
Yeah.
They're the line. They're clutch gaming.
4 teams inside the club, everybody else out, and TL's just stuck at the door bouncing people.
It's unfortunate. I'm sure they'd like to go in.
They accidentally punched EG one time, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, go back in."
My mistake, sir. I didn't recognize you.
They spilled their drink on EG. Sorry.
What did you guys think of TSM this weekend? I mean, they took down Cloud9, they took down Golden Guardians. They did have the loss to EG, but like.
They're in the club, baby.
They're in the club.
They're in the club. I always will have my reservations about, bottom lane focus or lost or whatever you want to say, but they are in the club and they are partying. Speak has been partying for a long time. He's getting dubs on the Rift. He's making fun of Alfari. I'm loving the interaction of those two going back and forth. It's grown into something I'm like each weekend, kind of, what's the next episode going to look like for that? Huni. I think that Huni is one of these guys that the community reacts very strongly. Whether he's doing well or whether he's doing poorly, they want to call for his head either way. And he's been doing quite well, fitting into a lot of different areas for TSM, showcasing some split pushing once again. The versatility of this team, I think, is there. Maybe, the area that you constantly are going to look at is going to be, but what about their AD carry performance in some of these, late game situations? Or what about objective calls for them going for base race or dragon trades or barons or whatever?
Yeah, I think there's still like areas you can talk about, like, the bot lane is hit or miss and their late game's not nuts. And like PoE has basically gone back to control mages for the most part. Like the last
It's a good thing. You guys have been saying that.
No, I'm down for it. But I'm just saying, like, there are these things you can point to be like, oh, well, they're not going to play like Diana Yasuo, like, like.
I honestly don't even care about that though, because all the champions I want them to play have been nerfed.
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's a lot of things that, like you said, like, other teams in the meta are doing this, and this. I would rather them have their own play style, which is like carry top, safe mid. Bot is like largely trying to roam, even though they're not currently great at it. Like, there's an identity here that I'm like, all right, that just do that, and they're working on that right now. And they have some areas to iron out, but they're picking up wins as they go. 2-1, 2-1, 1-2 was the last bad one that they had, and that was like the PoE Lee Sin game and stuff.
Yeah.
PoE also had a Syndra game, I remember, or I was casting it. He kept getting picked off.
That was
Standing in front of his Mundo and stuff like that. I was like, several of those.
I mean,
What's going on here?
What's funny for me is like that's an
Lissandra
easy
or the
game to
Mundo?
write off.
The Syndra is in front of his own Mundo.
Yeah, but I just mean, should the Mundo have been in front, or was he trolling? Which one was
PoE
trolling? Who's
was
the troll?
Trolling.
I think it's always going to be the Syndra, because you have to be like, okay, well, maybe the Mundo should be in this location, but he's not there. So
I mean, there's
gotta
times where he's like
agree.
live in reality.
Yeah, I
he's
agree with
pathing
you.
out of out of river to go mid lane, and like Contracts is standing there. And he's like, this guy's not going to kill me. And then Contracts just jumps on him and kills him. I'm like, what are you doing, PoE? I feel like that's the game where you watch this like generally good 3-point shooter just like rain air balls, and you're like, I'm not even worried about it because this is not who you are.
Yeah,
Yeah, like this is not your actual like skill level.
What you just said about the like Mundo and the Zidra thing just remind me of something you said. I don't even know when this was. Probably like 6 years ago or something that I always think about, where it's like when someone's flaming you for like not going to the dragon or something like that, and it's like they go like 3v5 and they die, and they're like, you idiots, you should have been at the dragon. And it's like, I can't remember what the context was, but you're like, yeah, but they weren't there, so don't
You have to live in reality.
So that just gave me a big flashback to that, which I always love that saying when people are going off in solo queue about that. I'm like,
Should have been there, but they weren't.
yeah.
What does the decision tree look like now? Wait, I don't stand in front and get one shot.
No, it's int and type with the gray screen. That is the play.
True.
I mean, I felt that too. Sometimes you're so frustrated, like you're spam pinging Baron, and then I felt like Closer even had this moment. There was a 100 Thieves game. All 100 Thieves go to kill the opponent team. He's hidden Baron by himself. It's at like 5,000 health, and he's just in there alone with Olaf. Like, guys.
And then he goes in 1v5s. And
Yeah. He salvages it. Everything's good in the end. They can have a good laugh about it later.
That was definitely the rest of his team trolling him though.
Yeah, that's actually the worst though, is when you're calling for a Baron and you know it's free and someone just like goes to farm wolves or something instead, or is just like refusing to group and just keeps splitting. That's a tilter. I will say, as far as the bot lane criticisms, to me, like maybe this feels a little bit bad, but it's like my criticisms have moved less to the bot lane and more to Lost now. I actually think Sorart's been playing pretty well. You can criticize Perks for not reacting well to the roams, and that's fair. Like he should have flashed some of those Leona engages, absolutely. But Sword Art destroyed Perks in that game, like with multiple roams. Some of the ults were really well timed, like that one where Perks ults forward and then he steps out of the brush and like the ult lands perfectly as Perks snaps back.
There's actually nothing Perks could do in that one because he came from fog too.
Yeah, and like the roam top side, he actually came out of a bush and met him and killed him. Like there was a lot of situations where I was like, okay, like Sword Art's actually playing like really well, like how he's moving around the map. So even though Lost wasn't doing great in that game, it was like, okay, well, like there's this one point, but at least Sword Art is working well. And it's like, it's much more okay to have like the AD who just kind of farms and then helps out late if the support is still active in the game. If the support is like locked in that 2v2 lane and both players are just losing and doing nothing, then it's more of a problem. So, it'll be interesting to see if that trend continues and Sword Art looks more to roam, because they were doing it even when they picked Kalista, which is like lane dominant, right? Like they were basically like using Kalista instead, just like get him through lane and provide more utility in team fights, which I think can be fine.
Yeah,
it's like the AD carry equivalent of back to Lissandra is like go back on Kalista and give my support an extra life with the ultimate, which doesn't even work because Kalista is also lane dominant and you want to snowball
I
and play off of it.
The back to Lissandra pick for AD carry is definitely
Ezreal?
Ashe. Yeah.
Oh,
Ashe isn't a bad one either.
yeah.
Well, the Ashe is also lane dominant.
Yeah, you should win most.
Emax. I'm an Emax Ashe player.
Honestly, Jungle's favorite AD carry's got to be Ashe. I love Ashe.
I like any of the utility AD carries because then it's like, I don't need to worry about engaging. That's you, Varus. Go flash ult somebody.
And you just flame them for their missing their arrows and their chains, huh, Mark?
I always feel like anytime there's an Ashe on the enemy team and I'm jungling, I can't do any sort of like cheese path. It's just like pointless. You may as well just full clear.
Yeah.
Because Hawkshot's going to catch you.
It's pointless. Why even jungle?
Yeah. Just give up.
You get invalidated by one single ability of one bottom lane champion.
And they're like, why haven't you ganked anywhere? As you get hawkshotted. They see your camps and you're like, all right, well, they know I'm topside. I wonder why this top laner backed off. Why don't you gank?
Why didn't you suicide into the Ashe to stop him from hawkshotting me? You're going to allow him to use a global on me?
As they push
Doesn't
in your bot lane
team
with Thresh, Ashe, and your team's playing some other stuff. Yeah.
I like this as kind of a wrap-up question, though, for like top of playoffs. Would you rather, if you did make it into playoffs, and assuming you're one of the bottom teams who just got in here, would you rather face Team Liquid or Immortals? Because the trajectories are about to cross.
Immortals.
Yeah. To me, it's just like the concern of like, ooh, but like, what if TL play? Like, you kind of know they can. they have really talented players, right? So it's like, what if they play to that top level? I think a lot of teams would be scared of that. Whereas I think Immortals has had some good games and had a great weekend. But I mean, they did 2 Draven picks. Like, you kind of just like ban their specialties and you expect their ceiling to be lower than the ceiling of TL. And I think that like all the top 4 teams would be confident that if Immortals doesn't surprise them, they're going to win the best of 5. Whereas TL is maybe more of the wild card, even though they have like consistently lost in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask that about any of the bottom teams, Dignitas, Immortals, whoever. I'd still rather play them over Team Liquid. Immortals, their bot lane is so hit or miss. When they win games, they look like usually pretty insane, like the Draven games and Destiny's games and like this kind of stuff. And then when they're losing on that streak where they were like, I think 3-7 in 10 games, they had a stretch that was pretty bad. Their bot lane was terrible, and I feel like they are in a lot of ways the most important part of the map for Immortals, even if they're not like the best part of the map. Because I feel like Xerxes, his highs are he's actually pretty incredible. His lows are like he's a little invisible. Whereas like for their bot lane, it's like their highs are they're winning you the game. Their lows are that like you just don't have a bot lane for this game. And it's like they're so volatile that I wouldn't be that concerned in the best of 5 where I'm like, yeah, they're gonna win 3 out of 5 bot matchups versus me if I'm a lot of the teams. Whereas I don't know, I feel like that makes me feel okay playing into that.
I know who would say Team Liquid. Speaker. Gimme. Then you get more trash talk opportunities.
Do you think you would do it when push comes to shove? It's like, I feel like there's a lot of those things and you're like, maybe not.
No one ever does that. They're like, yeah, give me TSM. I think Team Liquid tweeted this like, maybe it was like two.
Oh yeah, and then
ago.
they had the choice and then they didn't do it.
Pick them. Yeah. I forget what it was, but Steve definitely tweeted some stuff about.
Yeah,
like,
I remember specifically.
Well, that just happened with Sven Skaren. I think they were playing against
Ban Kane.
Ban Kane or whatever. Like, or said like leave Kane open. I can't remember.
He told Acadian, pick Kane versus me, see what happens. And they banned it in the first 3 bans, so he can't pick it. And then Acadian's like, yo, what happened, bro? And it's like, coaching staff wasn't me. Sorry, coaches.
I think that's hilarious. All right, we got an anchor question here. This one comes from Adam Strasser.
Hey guys. Since the release of Ivern, his play rate has been consistently low due to a variety of reasons outside of just his supported playstyle. However, other than him, there really isn't another jungler that focuses on shielding or healing allies, unless you maybe want to count Morgana's Black Shield. With that in mind, do you think that there should be 1 or 2 more supported junglers added to the pool? And if so, do you think that this should be done through adding new champions, or should they allow supports to play in the jungle, such as my totally not troll Rakan jungle? Thanks, guys.
I like playing support in games in general. I like being the healer. I like being the tank or whatever. I actually enjoy that. So like the play pattern of a jungler who's more supportive, I would totally play. Like Lulu jungle used to be a thing. And I think there have been others probably, but that's the one that jumps to mind of like, oh, I played that. It was fun. I liked, kind of just farming, defending my lanes from dives and stuff, not really gank focused. And then like we had a Kog'Maw later and now we're 2 supports buffing up this Kog'Maw. I like that. Ivern's just so stupid, dude.
What? I'm offended.
What?
How is he stupid? Ivern.
I'm not even playing League of Legends, dude.
You just tried to promote Lulu jungle here,
yes.
And you're saying Ivern is stupid. Ivern creates way more opportunities than Lulu jungle ever did. My problem with trying to make more supportive junglers.
Jungle. You just make little circles around the camps and you come back and you pick them up. I hate that.
Excuse me, sir. There's so many things wrong here. Like, you're telling me I don't even jungle? You don't even play League of Legends, Mark? Ivern is a jungler because you don't have to kill the actual animals. It's fine, okay? You still have to path around it. It's a different pathing mechanic, too. Ivern creates opportunities for your team. My problem with trying to shoehorn lots of more supports in is that would naturally slow the game down and make it more defensive.
Yeah.
Jungle as a role is balanced around creating ganks, creating opportunities, forcing objectives, and that sort of thing. And I actually think that they did it pretty well with Ivern because of the CC that you bring, being able to have other people dash in on landing your Q, and having Daisy as this forcing mechanism by making brushes to zone people with vision and use the extra health.
My eyes are glazed over to you. I'm like, you're trying to sell me on Ivern so hard. And I just think about playing Ivern, and I'm like, no.
This man is trying to fight me, my Ivern versus Lulu.
Lulu feels cool to play when you're like weaving your autos in well and you're kiting, and I would rather play Lulu than I. What would you rather play, Ivern or Lulu?
I feel like we're doing
Ivern,
one of these
actually.
fights, Mark.
Ivern, actually?
Ivern jungle, I think, is way more interesting. I'm actually heavily in the Kobe camp here.
Oh
I
my
just
God,
wanted to,
you guys-
wanted to see the
I was
fight
really
camp.
shocked with this take, Mark. Actually, I think this is the most shocking take you've
I mean,
had in a while.
I can get like you just don't want to play supports because you want to be the guy that does damage. But to me, Ivern's actually a fun supportive character for like a lot of reasons that Kobe's talking about. Like I think I don't like playing him just like blind, but if I'm playing, like I had a lot of fun playing Ivern with Nick Wu, who would play Darius. Like if you have a Juggernaut on your team and you just camp that lane, you throw out your root, he jumps them, you put the E on him, it pops and slows them. Like that's fun.
That to me is exactly why it's not fun, because you're not really playing a supportive champion. Ivern
How is that not supportive? You're shielding and you're CCing.
You have one shield and then you make brushes and you have a little bit of CC.
What is a support then?
I mean, I would love to play Lulu again in the jungle.
How is that any different? You're polymorphing, you're shielding.
You got your E. You don't have a little summon that you make.
This
do
is
your
a
dirty
terrible
work?
take, Mark.
I'm telling you, put Karma in the jungle.
I'm dead.
No.
Yeah,
That-
put Karma in the jungle.
So where I would not want it to go is literally that. I hate when the jungle meta is just like uninteractive, like farm and then do stuff
so
later.
you guys are going
like,
too far
that's
with the
karma.
meta thing, because I agree. I don't want a meta.
But that's karma. Karma can't. What's karma's gank?
You're telling me the whole meta's defined. I'm just saying I want one champion I can play.
Yeah, you got Ivern.
Ivern is so weird. I don't want to play
Too
a
hard
weird
for you. Hard.
Yeah,
That's what he said.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I don't care what the reasoning is. I don't want to play Ivern. I hate Ivern.
Okay, like so if they're gonna add more supports to jungle, like shielding supports, like this guy's talking about, I would rather have it be new
Slap
champions.
Mark on Yumi now.
New
Here's the thing.
champions.
If you guys
don't
want
put Jaina in
Ivern,
the
I'm not
jungle.
saying delete Ivern. I'm just saying I personally don't like playing Ivern, and I want a supportive thing that fills that niche, because right now there really isn't one. And I'm not saying everything has to be
But make
the
it a
meta.
new champion. Don't just put like to me putting Karma or Lulu in the jungle is not interesting.
Lulu Q 300% damage to minions. That's the jungle buff.
To
They
minions.
slap on everything. Or, excuse me, monsters. With the Morgana W and all this, the Diana passive.
Yeah, people would play it and I would hate it.
Yeah, it'd be great.
I'm calling
It'd be
this one
terrible.
over.
Yeah.
Next.
Mark is lost. All right. Twitter question. This one comes from Snow Canada. Man after my own heart. Who is the weakest champion in the game right now? It's Akshan. I've had this debate, and I think it's Sona. Interesting, because you could just pick Seraphine, but my friends say otherwise. Thoughts? I mean, I am like, for sure, it's not Sona. Sona has been good in solo queue. If you're talking about solo queue, maybe if you want to argue pro or something, okay. But even then, I mean, Sona is like consistently one of the highest win rate supports in the game for like 6 years. I think Sona is definitely not one of the worst champions in the game. Like if you just want to win, even in Diamond, even in Masters and stuff, this champion has a good win rate. It has a good win rate all the way down to like really low elo. So to me, I'm surprised you think Sona is one of the worst. It's like I can understand the take that maybe Seraphine is a better version or something, but Sona is really good. I think it has to be Akshan right now. It just came out. If that's on my team, I just expect the loss.
Yeah, I just hopped on low lytics quick, and obviously Akshan's the worst. But then outside of him, a lot of the stuff is like high skill cap champions that aren't actually that terrible.
Jungle Karma is the worst.
Yeah, well, I'm not playing that either. But you know, it's like, okay, Ryze, Gwen, Lucian, Akali, like
That's why you can't go by win rates.
I know,
All of
but
those
that's-
champions are good.
That's what I'm saying. Is like to Azael's point, like
You know what I have been missing for so long, for actually like 10 years, is a Mumu. Mumu you can play in
Low elo.
basic levels, yeah.
But then you get
But you
invaded.
have no extra speed or mobility, and you just waddle around to your camps and slowly do your own camps, and then you hope you don't get counter jungled and ganked and set up on because you have no escapes, you have no nothing. You can hit a big wombo for a team fight, but people can play around it. You can get cleanses. You can
Yeah.
He's not in
Counter-jungling
a
has
great
always been
state
the
right
biggest
now.
issue
Too.
for me on him for so long. Is counter-jungling has always been the biggest issue for me on him. It's like
You're
Olaf
so
or
predictable.
Lee or whoever shows up, and it's like, all right,
guess I'll just
you
die.
can take it. Okay, I'll just
The
give
best
that up.
junglers always have some sort of flexibility or something that's unpredictable about them, so that they can alter in reaction for these setups, and you can adjust. But Amumu has very few of those.
Well, and like just individually, he can't do anything.
So is he your take on the worst champion then?
Yeah, because the for sure worst champion is Akshan.
Yeah. Right now, I will say
He just got released. He's probably. I mean, I assume that.
and people have to learn him.
Yeah. But I've.
No, I think I'm with you kind of there. Amumu just feels sad to play.
Good at low elo though, because no one's gonna invade you.
Yeah. But even like other low elo champs, you can like find a spot like Malphite is like the low elo Bronzodia champion, or like Garen and some of this stuff. And like even those have seen play.
Even for lower ELO, Amumu has been at way better places throughout history. So even in the course of his life, because that champion structure has always been skewed for low ELO, he has seen better times.
Definitely agree. All right, we got this one from Derek Loves T. My two questions are: if you're playing Tahm Kench in mid and top, what key items should be built? And is jungle Tahm Kench good at all?
Jungle Tahm Kench is not good at all. I can answer that one. I played it grand total one time. You got no more AoE because you can't be eating stuff and spitting them out all the time since your ult got moved. And the cooldown on your W is long AF. You basically you can focus on the single target ones and then try and gank. But yeah, he's not good jungle.
And top and mid basically do the same thing in terms of build path. You basically try to counter build your lane opponent. You build your mythic item. Then you get your boots probably for whatever your lane opponent is, especially if it's a jungle of the same damage type. You might build anathemas at some point to latch onto the biggest threat, especially if it's a single damage type. But otherwise, you're just largely building tank. And I don't think there's too much variety in the situation other than like, what's the most damage that they're like? What's the team's damage profile I'm playing against? Build accordingly.
I would say for solo queue, one thing for starters, for the mythic, I pretty much always think you want to go Iceborne.
Yeah.
Frostfire, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I
potato.
always forget it. That I think is really good. I would say the flexibility that you have as far as like pure tank, I think it's the most common by far. I actually think Titanic is pretty nasty on Tahm Kench. Titanic second item is like actually really good. If you're winning, maybe it's not the smartest thing to do in competitive and you should just build full tank. But as far as win rates go, it's super high. As far as my personal experience, it's really, really strong. And if people try to ignore you, like you will mess them up with Titanic plus Frostfire.
I assume that also helps wave clear issues that he kind of has in pro. Or just in general, excuse me. Like, it's not like it's bad, but you have to like tunnel in onto the back line to like deal damage to them usually. And then it's a little slow, and that probably helps it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's same thing for jungle. He has no AoE, so it's gives you a little bit. Yeah, generally people will try and ignore you too as you're playing Tahm Kench, and he's insanely hard to kill. So you can play off of that.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, that'll wrap it up for us for now. Thanks again, Honda, for making this episode possible. And remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so you do not miss an episode of The Dive, youtube.com/LCS. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor.fm. Send us your questions on Twitter using the hashtag TheDiveLOL. And if you have any takes that you want to send us on Anchor, we might react to those on The Dive. And the LCS regular season concludes this weekend. Friday is actually insanely good. You don't want to miss Friday. TSM versus 100 Thieves kicking it off. And I believe it's EG versus C9 next. And then
My Golden Guardians.
for the playoff seed actually really matters lots. Those first three are absolutely sick games. I'm excited for it. 3 p.m. PST Friday. See you there.